What's going on, everybody? Appreciate you tuning in. Another edition of Passion and Precision with myself and Jory. You know how we do on here. We kind of give you our thoughts on big stories around the sports world. I usually get a rant, maybe even two, out of Jory, and we just have a good time on here, just going back and forth. So we do have some topics for you. They are NFL based because look, the NFL season has crept up on us. Preseason seemed like it started 3 months ago, and it's like already done. But the NFL season gets started in like a week and a half or so. We have cut down day and all that. So we're going to talk about some more topics going into 2024, 2025 season. So before we even get into all that, I do have to ask, Jory, how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. Can't complain. I'm ready to talk some sports. I definitely got a few things to say today.
I know how it is. Like every time I feel like I come on here, it's always a good day that you can, you just sit in front of the computer and just talk sports with, somebody that you get along with. Because like I said, we've been doing this for a while, and I feel like we definitely kind of understand where each other come from, where with a lot of these topics. So I always enjoy talking sports with you. So we've got another opportunity to do it today. So let's go ahead and get into the first topic that I feel like a lot of people have kind of given their opinion on this, because I do want to hear what you feel about it and let people tuning in know about it as well. So there was an interview between Tua and Dan Lebitard, former ESPN guy, big Miami area sports fan personality. Got Tua to open up about his relationship with Mike McDaniel and Brian Flores, which, whatever, they're contrasting. He gave an honest opinion, which I feel like a lot of fans love that. But in praising Mike McDaniel, he basically painted Brian Flores as like this, well, as he said, terrible person. And also, as he said, like Flores, he made it seem like Flores just went out of his way to just tear him down, and that really affected his quarterback play. So, I guess before I get more into it, Jory, like, what were your thoughts on the way Tua handled the interview, and did you agree with what he said about Brian Flores?
I don't like the answer and I don't like the question. Levitard knew exactly what he was doing when he asked that question. He knew
Mm-hmm.
exactly what he was doing. And Tua was very cognizant. He knew what he was doing when he said what he said. My biggest question about the whole thing is like, why? Why?
Mm-hmm.
Because why do we have to tear one person down that in all of this happened 2 years ago to uplift another? You could have uplifted Mike McDaniel, who's a little bit overrated if you ask me, without tearing down Flores. You know this man is trying to get another head coaching job. Everybody knows this. He took the defensive coordinator route. So it's like 2 years later, you get asked this question, and instead of saying just uplifting Mike McDaniels or wording that in a different manner, you take that route.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to make me side eye everything that goes on in Miami. Because while you're over here painting Flores as a bad person, as a terrible person, you're not mentioning the fact that your play was terrible. You're not mentioning that part. That he had a reason to ride you as hard as he did. You weren't playing well. Whether it was the confidence thing or whatnot. You were not playing well. He coached you hard. That's the type of tree that he came from, in all honesty. That's the way he was taught. I'm sorry that you've had coaches that have done nothing but kiss your rear end, and I know they didn't do that at Alabama, so I don't know where he gets this crap from. They did not do that in Tuscaloosa.
Hard to think Saban would be that kind of coach. Yeah.
Exactly. So I don't know where this comes from, but there's a different, now that you have a coach that you feel like you have more of a personable relationship with, you can grow with, there's a different way of telling that experience without tearing down somebody else. Sometimes you just got to be the bigger person and let bygones be bygones. And then I loved Flores's response is that he ate it and he said, I've grown from it.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, the impact of what Tua said might, the damage could be done already. Because you know how people like to do. He said, she said type of stuff. You know he's going for
Yep.
another head coaching job. And now you have Tua saying that he's a terrible person and da 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 da. You don't think that's going to get into the ear to some of these owners that a quarterback said it?
Right. Yep.
There was a better choice of words. There was a better way of even painting it. And he chose to go this route. A lot of people are like, I like Sassy Tua and da 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 da. Yeah, I like Sassy Tua when it's within time limit. Now he could have did all of this right as Flores got fired, not 2 whole years after, and he's trying to find another job. Like let's be completely honest. It was out
Mm-hmm.
of line for the question and for the answer.
Yeah. I mean, it's something where I know, especially as a Patriots fan, everybody in the media used to talk about how boring Patriots players were in interviews because they always gave like generic, kind of cookie cutter answers. Well, not exactly all the time because there were a few people that it seemed like Belichick kind of let be themselves. Like Gronk was a guy who kind of showed personality. Um, I think Brady later on kind of let people know more about his situation and all that. So I, when I heard the Tua part of it, I thought back to those players like that who, you know, if they got an answer that they felt like was kind of a gotcha type of question, they would give an answer that was so bland and vague. A lot of people didn't like that. So I don't know, like Levitar and Tua, like how comfortable they are with each other and everything like that. And maybe that's why Tua was just whatever. But I definitely agree with you that the timing I'm not a big fan of because most NFL fans will say Brian Flores should be a coach in this league. Just based off of what he did in Miami with all the circumstances and everything like that. Like he took a team that was basically sabotaging him from the front office and had a winning record. You know, he loses his job there, has the lawsuit and everything, and now he was a defensive coordinator with the Vikings, which a lot of people probably would look at as a very big downgrade. And now he's I think it's like a personal assistant or like assistant head coach in Pittsburgh or something like that, where I think working alongside Tomlin probably does help his profile, which is kind of what he was building back up. And now to bring this into it, because like you said, one, I mean, we do have to talk about it. Minority head coach. It's been a big problem in the NFL. And two, the biggest thing you have to do as a head coach is have a good relationship with your quarterback. That's the most important position on the football field. So if this paints it like he can't get along with today's players, then yeah, some of these GMs are going to use it against him and probably continue to hold him down. And we might see him start bouncing around to like odd job after odd job for a guy that, if you look around the league, there's a lot of people who have head coaching jobs that should not have them. And Flores would be somebody that if he's What would you say?
Like McCarthy.
I mean, Dennis Allen,
Yeah.
Eberflus. Like,
Yeah.
there's a few of them out there that if you put Flores in that situation, probably would be a vast upgrade. So, I mean, look for Levitard. He asked the question. I can't necessarily say I would put anything on him because that's kind of his job is to just ask whatever he wants. But Tua in that situation could have worded it better. And you did bring up something early on as well. He was really painting it that Mike McDaniel's been really good for his career. I have no problem with that. He could have kind of left it at that and just
Mm-hmm.
praised Mike McDaniel. Like you didn't have to throw in terrible person for Brian Flores. Yeah, what's going on, Jordan? Two was put on the spot. I mean, sure, but he also has to understand like what he says will either bring about criticism or praise. And that's why I'm like, if you just rated up Mike McDaniel, this would not be a story
Mm-mm.
at all. Because all everybody's focused on is what he said about Brian Flores. That's it.
But
And
because he decided to take that extra little oomph and say
mm-hmm,
Brian Flores is a terrible person and da da da, whatever he said, to say that, of course we're gonna talk about it because you decided to trash one man while uplifting another. I don't roll like that. I don't do that.
right. And also, you brought up Flores came from a system in New England where Belichick treated every player the same. Because Julian Edelman, guys like that will talk about how Belichick would get into Brady and call him out, chew him out, just like the 53rd guy on the roster. So Brian Flores, remember, first coaching job, and as we've seen from every other Belichick disciple, they all try to come in with the same Belichick way. It doesn't work for a lot of them. You know, we saw Josh McDaniels and others really fail at it, but it's not. It's also something to say that Flores. So okay, so Flores went in with the same mentality, and it didn't work for Tua. And like he said, he learned from it. He moved on. It was his first coaching job. Everybody makes mistakes. Like Belichick got fired in Cleveland, and now look, he's seen as the greatest coach ever.
Yeah.
What is this? Not once did he explain he was the reason why Brian Flores is out of that coaching job. Of course, he ain't gonna say that, but yeah, you got to be honest with yourself. Well,
Of course, he's not gonna do. He's not gonna do that while taking a dig. He can't take. You're
right,
not gonna take fault while taking a dig at somebody else. That's
right,
usually how that works. If
yeah,
you're antagonizing and attacking somebody, you're not taking fault for anything. It's their fault.
mm-hmm,
And Tua, we're not blind. We're not stupid. You didn't come from a coaching system that kisses your butt. Now that you have a coach that will kiss your butt and rub your feet and do all this other extra stuff, it's a little, you like it like that and you don't appreciate old school coaching, even though that's kind of where you came from.
mm-hmm. Yeah. That is kind of a weird part of this. Is there's no way Nick Saban is that bad. I mean, that coddling of players.
He's
Like
not.
he. So I don't understand how all of a sudden Tua doesn't like the kind of. Well, okay, so I guess he's trying to say, Saban didn't say the degrading stuff that Brian Flores said. I guess Nick Saban went with a different approach, which is what I don't know. That I feel like that could have been a good follow-up question. Like, so how did Nick Saban treat you if Brian Flores was such a terrible person? And Nick Saban, we know, is somewhat like Belichick. Hold on, says someone's audio is bad. Okay. Does my audio sound bad to you, Jory?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Yeah, yours sounds fine to me.
Like I'm confused because he was there. He was literally there my first semester college semester there. He was there.
Hmm.
I'm not kidding. Him and his little brother were there. So I'm like, you're not from this coddling system. You literally are a product of. If you can't do it, we'll get somebody in that can.
Hmm.
That's how he got the job at Alabama anyway.
Yep.
So I'm like, I don't know why he's acting like this, but you have no room. Mind you, Brian Flores won 19 games in his first 2 seasons as
Yep.
the head coach. Mike McDaniel's only won 20, so it's not like you've really dropped off. And you didn't have Tyreek Hill, Raheem Mostert, and all of that in company then, as you do now. And you still have only won 20 games. Give me a break. Mike McDaniel's good for his confidence. I love that. I love that he's enabled to it to develop. But this bad look, and you should have just shut your mouth. Well, at this point, I can't say that because he was asked a question. It was a bad look. You could have minded your words a little bit better. You knew exactly what you were doing when you said that. And yeah,
No, I completely agree with that. It's and maybe Tua as still kind of a young player in this league, he let his emotions get the best of him, and it's obvious he wasn't a fan of Brian Flores. And from all the stories, Brian Flores wasn't a fan of Tua. Didn't necessarily want him. The organization stuck him with him, and obviously that's what led to a lot of this. But I do think that um, the scene with Brian Flores and the players standing behind him as he was giving his answer does kind of prove his point that he's developed and he's grown from the Miami situation. John, what's going on? Did they improve on defense? To me, looks like the same team as last year. Maybe
it
one
is.
more loss.
They've drafted pretty solidly, but it pretty for the most part, it's pretty much the same. You got an old Jalen Ramsey who gets trucked. You lost Christian Wilkins. They let him walk. They lost Raekwon Davis. It's a little different, but for the major keys, they'll have Bradley Chubb back. But he's coming off an ACL, so that's not. It takes 2 seasons to really get from an ACL injury. So there's that. I think it's pretty much the same defense.
Yeah. I think the Wilkins loss is going to be a big one. Like he was a guy that, especially as a Patriots fan, watching Miami's defense, like Wilkins was a guy that always gave the Patriots like issues, and the fact that he's not there, like we'll have to see what they look like once the regular season starts. They're obviously an offense first kind of team. Like you got Waddle, you got Tyreek Hill, you have Mostert, you have A Chain. Like they're expecting to put a lot of pressure on teams by scoring a lot of points, and then that makes the defense easier if you're playing from ahead and they have to only throw the ball like 70% of the time. Makes calling the defense a lot easier. But John, I do agree with you. Like they they are pretty much the same, but I guess it's the new Miami Dolphins with Mike McDaniel. They're going to throw the ball around, and we'll see. I'll be obviously with them. They have to do better than last year when the weather got a little cold. They definitely fell off, and that's what I think most people are looking for this year. How do they finish their season? At the start, they'll probably look great. That doesn't do anything anymore, especially the way that they lost that playoff game and looked like a team that quit when they walked off the bus and was like, "It's not Miami anymore." So unless
Unless
they get the number one
decided,
seed, I just yeah, go ahead.
unless they decided to do some tackling drills in Canada or something, take a team trip to do some drills in Canada,
Yeah.
I don't think that's gonna happen. because there's no way you can emulate Kansas City, a Baltimore, a New York in December or January in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
There is no way you can emulate that because it's too hot, it's too humid, it's too sticky.
Yeah.
It's more it's more hot down there, clearly. But in these other places where it gets cold, they decide they don't want to tackle. Bella, I'm not opening my door, so you might want to stay up here. Um, Cross my leg. Um,
No, I understand. Uh, well, I'll say
they
that
gotta learn
John's
how.
comment that the only thing that did that improved on their defense is the D coordinator, Anthony Weaver, as he said, who came from the Ravens. Ravens had a pretty good defense, but does Miami have the players to emulate the strength that Baltimore defense had?
No,
Probably not. But appreciate that, John. Um, I mean, I guess anything you want to add about Tua and this whole situation?
y'all better get past the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah,
Tua.
or win the division too.
Yeah, this is their best chance to win the division.
Exactly.
They were like, what they're going through right now is like what we said about the Ravens last season, that this was their best shot to win it.
Mm-hmm.
The Miami Dolphins are in the exact same predicament.
Yep.
We saw what one team did with their best shot to win it. What is Miami going to do?
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. Um, Now later on, we are going to talk about players and all that under pressure. I'm not going to say maybe one of these people could pop up on one of our lists later on, but let's go ahead and move to our next topic. All right, so stock up, stock down. I mean, this is I guess we'll name this segment. So Jory and I are going to look at some teams that we feel like this season will be on the rise, basically off of last year, who we feel a little bit more positive about going this year. And then some teams we're not feeling too high on going into this year. That's why I did stock up, stock down. So I think we'll start with the positive teams on the rise. I guess you can. Well, how many teams do you have on your, I guess, rise list?
I have four, and then I have like an honorable mention or two.
Okay, because I did three.
Okay. Of
So
course.
okay, so I'll let you do your four. I'll do my three, and then you'll give your honorable mention. We'll do it that way.
All right. So, one, I would say the Atlanta Falcons.
Okay.
They've done, I don't know, they, from last year, I didn't know what the Colts, ew, get that out of here. Um, sorry. um, from what they've done from last year, I didn't know what Terry Fortnell was doing,
Mm-hmm.
but now I'm starting to see the vision. I'm starting to see. Now, granted, they caught a lot of heat drafting Michael Penix Jr. after paying Kirk Cousins, but I got the point of what they were doing. They didn't want some fourth or fifth round rookie coming in to back up, coming in right after Kirk Cousins. They wanted a first round draft pick, somebody who was talented enough to be a first round draft pick. They kind of
Mm-hmm.
wanted that transition. They're planning for that transition to be a little smoother. Because they saw what they did with where they messed up at with Matt Ryan, and they are just now riding the ship from that. I love what they did from the defensive instead defensive. I love what they did on the other side of the ball,
Mm-hmm.
trading for Judon, going to get Justice Simmons, putting him on the other side of Jesse Bates. Like they might have the best safety tandem in the league, if we're gonna be completely honest. It's up there. I thought I
Yeah.
had a good one, but they could definitely got some.
Hmm.
So and then you get Judon to help Grady Jarrett and free up some of that good. They have some talent on that defensive line. It's just that when Grady's getting double teamed and he's coming off an injury, when he's getting double teamed, you need somebody to step up. When you have add a Matt Judon to the other side of that, it'll allow somebody else or a few other people to actually set to step up. So I really like what they've done. I think they are on paper the favorites to win the division because I feel like the Bucks are a veteran team and they are about 2 seasons away from blowing it up. I will
Okay.
say another team whose stock should be on the rise, no surprise, will be the Eagles because I feel like we stopped talking about them as much, but because of how they ended the season last year, they really don't give us much to talk about. But they went through a whole exodus. They went through a whole exodus of revamping that offense. You went and get Dotson. You signed Saquon Barkley,
Hmm.
which will take some of the pressure off of Jalen Hurts. Even though you lose Kelsey, you still have a good offensive line. I'm confident in that offensive line. They did hit in the draft on those corners and safeties that they did draft. I like them. They fixed that area. And they also know I like where you're going with that, Anthony. Um, I like what was I going with that? They all know, Nick Sirianni know, if they do what they did last year, he gone. He knows that. Hold on. Did it go away?
I guess we'll ask Anthony. Is it better now, Anthony? 'Cause, I mean, on my end, it sounds fine. I don't know what they're hearing necessarily.
I'll figure it out.
I'll just say just keep talking.
But yeah, Sirianni knows if a fraction of what happens last year happens this year,
Hmm.
he's screwed. So of course they're going to perform better. They have a better team. Granted, they got rid of Hassan Reddick, but we all see what he's doing right now. We all
Yeah.
see he wants his money. And the Jets are idiots for not giving it to him yet. They're trying to get him to wait until he plays it down to football. You traded for the man knowing he wasn't playing a down of football until you paid him. And now you want him to play a down of football before you pay him? How backwards and you realize how stupid that sounds? Just talking it out.
Hmm.
Like what? That's the Jets for you.
Exactly.
My next team would be my team. I hear it now.
Okay. Because Anthony said it's better now.
You do your first two teams and then I'll come back.
All right. That's fine. All right. So, as you know, Jory fixes her audio. So I'll say that my first team, I went with the Chargers. I feel like just bringing in Jim Harbaugh over Staley, big plus for me. I feel like Harbaugh will bring discipline to that team that they've sorely missed under Staley. Now, I don't know necessarily how many wins that translates into, but I do think you'll see a better football team. They went and got Joe Alt, who's going to play on the opposite side from Rashawn Slater. So at the tackle position, you're looking pretty good, which should help out Herbert, as well as the running back position. Even though they don't have Austin Eckler anymore, but they do have. Well, they went out and basically just brought in the Ravens running back room with Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. Look, Dobbins has to stay healthy. Obviously, that's something that he hasn't been able to do. But Gus Edwards is who's the Chargers running back. Enough said. Look, I'm not thrilled with the running back group either, but at least you have two good tackles. That should be able to block well enough. I mean, they got Greg Roman. Greg Roman, I guess, will come up with some system that they can be at least valuable in. I mean, you don't need either one of them to be, 1,200-yard backs, but can they give you, I don't know, 400 or 500 yards and at least take some pressure off of Justin Herbert? Because if you're going to go up against the Chargers and the only thing you're worried about is Herbert throwing the ball around, remember, they don't have Keenan Allen anymore. They don't have Mike Williams, even though Mike Williams was hurt a lot as well. Quentin Johnson is a guy who's had drop issues. So I do think Harbaugh's going into that job hoping to run the ball a little bit more. Defensively, they have Bosa, they have Mack, they have Asante Samuel Jr., they have Derwin James. So they have some pieces on that side of the ball that, Harbaugh and his staff have a good starting point with. Now, they were 5-12 last year. I'm not saying that they're going to be like some 12-win team, win the division or anything like that. I see them more as like an 8-9-win team, which that's for Harbaugh's first year. I feel like that would be obviously an improvement. I'm thinking kind of long term that Harbaugh's probably going to be much better with them next year. I mean, there were some numbers last year that were troubling that they do have to improve upon. Like they ended the year 1-8, which is obviously why Staley no longer has a job. Herbert's health, he missed 4 games last year. He's already dealing with an injury now in the preseason. So if he obviously has to be healthy. I'm sure none of you are worried about Easton Stick, leading this team anywhere. They were 21st in scoring, so their offense wasn't good. They were 23rd in scoring defense. And remember, Staley was supposed to be a defensive coach, and his defense was trash. So I'm putting a lot of this on the back of Harbaugh and Roman fixing those two sides of the ball. The second team I put, don't know how you're going to react to this one, Jory, but I put the Bears. I'm not, drinking the Kool-Aid like some people are with the Bears, but I just think that, Adunze, Keenan Allen, you have Caleb Williams. We'll have to see how he acclimates to the NFL, but I'm a big Keenan Allen guy, and I feel like he's going to bring, leadership to that group. They have DJ Moore, who was really good in Carolina. Unfortunately, it was Carolina. And when he got to Chicago, played pretty well with Justin Fields. They have DeAndre Swift over there now. Cole Kmet came on a little bit last year, so I'm expecting more improvement there. Last year, they were number 1 in rush defense, number 5 in takeaways. So defensively, pretty good. They have Montez Sweat, TJ Edwards, Tremaine Edmonds on that side of the ball with Brisker, Jalen Johnson, who's a top-level corner in this league. I feel like they have some pieces there to do some things. Now, there are some questions. Have they learned from the Fields experience and not do the same thing with Caleb Williams? So far, they set up Caleb Williams to be more successful than they ever did for Justin Fields. I think another issue I have is, Poles and Eberflus. I'm not a fan of Eberflus, as we talked about earlier, but he has a job. He has pieces there. They were 7-10 last year. I feel like they're a better team on paper this year. So, could they sneak into the playoffs? I know that we did our playoff predictions. I have the Bears as the last wildcard team in. So I feel like I had to kind of back that up with thinking that they're a team on the rise. Now, the only issue defensively, they are good. They do not get to the quarterback. They were 31st in sacks per game last year. So that's a lot of pressure you're putting on Jalen Johnson in that secondary to cover if you're not getting to the quarterback. But I do think they will be better this year. Like I said, they seem committed to Caleb Williams. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. But those are the first two teams that I had. I will say the third team I did have was the Atlanta Falcons, and you did touch on them as well. So Raheem Morris, I feel like is, a good coach in this league. Arthur Smith didn't work. Kirk Cousins over Desmond Ridder, big plus. I mean, Michael Penix over Desmond Ridder is a plus. So you're bringing in Cousins, or if Michael Penix does have to play because, Cousins gets hampered with the injury. But you have Pitts, Bijan Robinson, Drake London, even Tyler Algier, who people forget, ran for 1,000 yards before Bijan got there. So they have the makings to be a pretty good offense. Pass defense, they were 8th in the league in yards against per game. And then their rush offense was number 8 in the league in yards per game. So they can, they should be able to play, like chew the clock when needed with the good running game. And now you have competent quarterbacks under center. Your pass offense should be much better this year. So I agree with you. I think they could be a dangerous team for sure. And Matt Judon should help their number 21 ranking for sacks per game. As long as you get Judon from like 2 years ago when he had 15 and a half. Last year, he only played 4 games, had 4 sacks. So he will benefit from Grady Jarrett, who, even though Grady Jarrett's like 32, still commands a lot of attention on the interior of the line. And Judon's going to play on the outside of him. So I do think those two will work really well together. Their leading sacker last year was Calais Campbell. And Calais Campbell's like 55. So Matt Judon should be able to feed off of Grady Jarrett and get to the quarterback. So those are the 3 teams that I had. Hopefully you're good to go now.
I think it's fine.
Okay.
But my third team is definitely going to be my team. Because I got to watch our last preseason game, and I liked what I saw. People have called me cuckoo. I've been asked, you don't have questions about Will Levis and da 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 da. He's going to be fine. Ladies and gentlemen, an actual offense that they have, not just trying to run it down the field, an actual offense where we have receivers who can actually catch the ball. It is a very good sight to see. But I feel like this is a team that could sneak into a wild card. They did. Their offensive line, the offensive line is actually blocking. We offloaded Andre Dillard. That was an absolute failure. Good luck to the Packers and Jordan Love with that, because you better hope he don't have to touch the field. He whiffs on everything. You could blow on him and he'd miss it. Like, anyway. So we've drafted pretty well the last 2 seasons. We went and got another offensive tackle in J.C. Latham. But what I'm excited about the offense with DeAndre Hopkins and Calvin Ridley and Tyler Boyd. And if Treylon Burks can stay healthy, he could be coming into his own as well. Will Levis, he showed some restraint and actually not trying to block people and not get hurt. We get it. You're a tough guy, but I would like for you to have a long career. We don't need you doing that unless you absolutely have to in a regular season game, not a preseason game. He fought off. He was trying to block. He wanted to block somebody so bad today. You saw it all over his face. And the restraint.
Mm-hmm.
He continues his development, which I've seen in actual offense with yeah, Brian Callahan, with what he's been able to do with the running attack and the wide receivers. I'm very excited about that. Another part of it is it's just not the offense we paid attention to this offseason. It's the defense. Tavondre Sweat is going to be a problem. And if you put him in the interior along with Jeffrey Simmons, you can only double team one. You can't double both of them because then you got a Kenneth Murray or something coming from a blitz or whatnot,
Yep.
or an Arden Key coming straight at the quarterback. You're going to leave the middle of the field open if you double team both of them. And then the secondary, we know we traded Byard. I get it. He was still decent, and then he took a step back in Philly. I don't know what happened to him in Philly, but he's now a Bear, so we'll see him soon. There was a few other ones, but we added a Woozier, we added L'Jarius Sneed,
Yep.
which will shore up the secondary. We already had a decent secondary with McCreary and Elijah Molden, who now has a concussion, and I'm worried about him. But depth, we have depth, I feel like. And there's a few I feel like I'm gonna have to watch for what's that man's name? Jackson. Jaquan Jackson. He's gonna fight his way on the 53. He's very fast. Watch for him as well. That's just the name to watch. I like how we've drafted. I like how we built this team. I like the fact that it's been clicking so well off rip in the off season. I like that because usually it translates, especially when the past two preseason games you've been playing Will Levis in the first quarter, and he's going for like 5, 4, or 5 and a touchdown, or 5 or 7 or 8 or whatnot for a touchdown. That's good to build on. I have high hopes this team could sneak into the wild card. And then the last team I had is the Rams because I don't know why we just forgot that Sean McVay is a very good head coach and can coach his tail off and is very smart. It he gets a little flown under the radar because we're talking about the foolishness of Shanahan and some of these other coaches. But McVay is a very good coach. He managed last year. I'm not mentioning Denver because I don't like their head coach. I don't like Sean Payton. Granted, I feel like they have some of the key pieces to get there, but
Mm-hmm.
you're putting your trust in a rookie head in a rookie quarterback. There's going to be highs. There's going to be lows. Best believe it. So I know what Dan Quinn is as a head coach. I'm not terribly too sold on that situation in Washington. Good for
Yeah.
Jaden Dan. Back to the Rams. Last year, we know what Matthew Stafford is kind of a little underrated as well, if we're going to be completely honest. We kind of lose him in the midst of the whole quarterback thing. And then we found Puka Nacua. They found their actual running game. They still have a decent offensive line. And I like the pieces that they've had in developing with post Aaron Donald. I like the Kobe Turns of the world, the Byron Youngs of the world. I like what they're doing over there. They've been Once they started acquiring some actual talent, they've been putting together a sneaky good team. And in the NFC West, where if we all know the 49ers are injury prone, they always get hurt for whatever reason. If they're not on their P's and Q's, especially with Ayuk not happy about his contract situation,
That story. Yeah.
the Rams could give them a little scare.
I, I mean, look, you brought up the Ayuk situation. Like, there's a news story that Washington might be back in play for him. Then there's a story that the Niners are close to a contract with him. I am so exhausted with Brandon Ayuk. Like, just do something. If you're gonna stay there, sign it. Let's move on. Now, if he does get to Washington, that would be intriguing. Terry McLaurin, he would be back with Jaden Daniels, who they played together at Arizona State for I think a year. I know John brought up Washington and Denver. I was gonna say like Washington was my honorable mention because I'm big on Jaden Daniels. I was one of those who kind of thought Jaden Daniels would be better than Caleb Williams. We'll have to see how that plays out. Um, and I'm a big Terry McLaurin guy, but like you, my holdup is Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn, the defensive coordinator, fine. Head coach, I just don't know. And a lot of the issues he had in Atlanta, you could say that maybe he gave too much reign to Shanahan or whatever, because obviously the 28-3 thing is always going to loom over Dan Quinn's head. But a lot of that was Shanahan choosing the pass instead of run. But I don't need to rehash that for Falcons fans. As a Patriots fan, I can talk about it all day. But like I said, we can move on. So if Dan Quinn is a better coach the second time around, which can happen, then yes, Washington could be an interesting team in that division, where you're looking at the Eagles and what they have and, how good that they are. The Giants, we know what the Giants are. Washington could be third best in that division. And who knows? Maybe they're in a fight with the Bears, Rams, some of these other teams like Seahawks, some of these teams for like that final playoff spot. I wouldn't be surprised if Washington was like the third wild card next year. Wouldn't surprise me at all. So, like I said, I know John said nobody mentioned Washington. I will say I give Washington some credit in this conversation. But we did our stock up. We have to look at the negative now. The stock down. Anthony said Cowboys, Arizona, New England, and the Saints. I mean, coming at me with putting my Patriots on there, but that's okay. All good. But teams on the decline, stock down. How many teams do you have on your list for that?
Hold on. 3 in an honorable mention.
Okay, I have 3 teams as well. So once again, go ahead with your 3.
Not my Cowboys, but the Cowboys on there because Jerry, and that's not it. It's like here's the first 3 words of what I had on my paper: self-inflicted wound. They're happening in the off seasons. Usually with the Cowboys, they happen in the season, but we're already dealing with this in the off season. You don't have an easy schedule. Your schedule is front loaded. You cannot afford to get out playing Rocky against teams with winning records, or else you won't have a winning record. And then you have a new defensive scheme. What are you eating? I'm sorry. Um,
Sorry.
Scheme. CD Lamb from training camp. He held out all of training camp, so he's gonna be rusty. We failed real. He's gonna be rusty,
Mm-hmm.
and it might take him a month or 2 to get straight. It might take him half the season to get in shape. Who knows? You lost a chunk of your starters at key positions. Leighton Vander Esch retired. You lost Michael Gallup, who went to the Raiders and then promptly retired. I don't blame him. Guyton is gone, I believe. Yeah. Tyron Smith is a Jet. Tyler
Hmm.
B is a Commander. Dorrance Armstrong is a Commander. Stephon Gilmore is gone. Yep, Deron Bland is injured.
Yep.
You and you've done almost absolutely nothing but three whole moves this offseason to offset anything. Your head coach and your quarterback are on lame duck contracts. This team is an accident waiting to happen. They don't have, like I said a few minutes ago, they do not have an easy schedule at all. I wish I had, hold on. I think I have my notes right here. I can pull it up because I'm like,
I will say I had the Cowboys on my list too. I look at their schedule like week 6 to 11 is probably where their season's going to be defined because they have to play the Lions, I think at the Niners, at the Falcons, home for the Eagles, and home for the Texans. That stretch right there, is going to be very important for them. The Here's another thing. Because Jerry didn't do anything outside of re-signing Zeke, of course, but their skill position, I look at their depth chart right now. Because CeeDee Lamb isn't reporting with the contract dispute, their wide receiver group is Jalen Tolbert, Brandon Cooks.
that's
I don't
cool.
know how many of you know who Jalen Tolbert is. I had to do a quick Google search on him because I didn't know him either. But that's what they would be going into the season with if they don't get the CeeDee Lamb situation figured out.
And it's
And
not
if
just
you go ahead.
start with the Browns.
Mm-hmm.
You have, I don't believe in the Saints. But after the Saints, you play the Ravens,
Mm-hmm.
the Giants, man. But then who knows what the Steelers are going to look like? That's a tough game, too. Like they have a loaded schedule and they don't have time to waste. And
Mm-hmm.
just doing all this procrastinating can they don't mess around and not make the playoff.
AJ Dillon would have been a better signing, but Zeke is cheaper and knows the team. True.
Would have been the signing for them if they were actually serious. But they
Yeah.
let offensive linemen go and they went and got an old Zeke who can barely run for a cloud in the dust. Good for them.
Yeah. Like they're gonna have to rely on, what was it, Vaughn? The dude who's like 5'5" at running back. I guess he's gonna be the change of pace with
He's
Zeke.
taller than me.
Uh, he's very tiny. Like I don't know. And like I don't know how you feel about Dak, but you're asking Dak to do a lot with this offense. And like I said, I don't rate Dak necessarily crazy high in terms of quarterbacks in this league. I don't even know it's going to be fair to really judge Dak on this year because of their lack of weapons around him. You got Mike McCarthy, who seemingly is coaching for his job year in and year out. It almost seems like, well, I mean, I guess to go conspiracy theory on this, like Jerry just wants a reason to probably fire him. So he didn't do a lot of moves this year, hoping Mike McCarthy struggles. And then we go into next offseason with, the rumors that's going to come around. Bill Belichick to the Cowboys. Like that's clearly where it seems like this is heading. That's probably what Jerry Jones would love to do because nothing gives Jerry Jones attention like going to get Bill Belichick to coach in Dallas. So if you're Mike McCarthy, you are sitting there scratching your head as to what to do with this team. If you're the Cowboys, like you need to start off quickly because, like you said, their start of the season, isn't easy. It's not like extremely difficult. Like I said, that week 6 to 11 stretch is a tough stretch for them. So they need to be kind of in a good position leading up to that, because they start off slow, get into that, and come out of that 5 game stretch like 1-4 or something like that. It's going to get really ugly in Dallas, and I, yeah. So Dallas was on my list as well. So you can go with your second team. But John said Cowboys tank, fire head coach, draft Shedeur Sanders, bring his dad along with him. I mean, that would also be for Jerry's attention grabbing as well to get Dion to go there. I don't think it happens though. What if Jerry Jones signed Zeke just to keep Dak on the team, his best friend? Well, I mean, if you're gonna keep him on the team, then the man's looking for a contract. But,
Jerry is. But my second
oh,
team,
okay, I got you. Yeah. Hold on. I think Sanders will end up at Vegas.
I think Sanders gonna end up somewhere where when his daddy don't want him to go.
Oh,
And
yeah. Imagine a circus around that.
and they can do about it. Maybe I'm just tired of Dion, but who knows? My second team, I'm gonna say, is the Buffalo Bills because they got hit. They are already in hell. Like you got hit with the cap salary demons this year. You offloaded Diggs, even though I think that was for the better of the team. That was becoming a distraction. Well, not becoming, he was already a distraction. And I knew
Mm-hmm.
it was going to be a distraction, not this offseason, but last offseason. I saw it coming. I said, oh boy, he ain't going to be here much longer. I saw it coming. And then you lost a chunk of defensive players. I don't think Matt Milano's there anymore. No, yeah, he's hurt.
He's out for the year. Got hurt like this past week.
Michael Hyde is out. Just stuff with an old Von Miller. And
Mm-hmm.
Tre'Davious White is out.
Poyer's
Your
out.
wide receiver of unproven wide receivers for the most part, and Keon White, who's a rookie, which means Josh Allen is going to need to prioritize actually taking care of the football this year. I don't think look, and I think that my opinion on that is they've let that gone so far unchecked that there's really nothing you can do about it at this point because they let it slip so much when it worked instead of trying to maybe be a little cautious here instead of that might not happen for you all the time because it could go the other way as well. Instead of trying to like temper it, they just let them go. I'm like, okay. Sean McDermott, you also sneakily on a hot seat. If they don't do it, but that team is in such a bad position right now that it's pretty much impossible to even make sense of putting him on the hot seat right now. But
Right.
he's sneakily on it. I just think that they're just set up to have a little bit of a regressive season.
Once again, I had the Bills on my list as well, so we definitely matched with that. Um, I found a couple of interesting stat lines. Matt Milano, I did talk about. He's out for the year. He's their captain on defense. They were near the bottom in interception thrown percentage, and you and I have brought this up before. I mean, even before we had the show, but Josh Allen loves forcing the ball, which gets them in a lot of trouble. So now, if you take Diggs away, does it change his mentality in checking the ball down more? I don't know. I find it hard to believe that that's just going to change overnight with him. They seem like they're going to be tight end dependent with Kincaid and Knox, and then just hope like Keon Coleman and those other guys just kind of fit in around those two. So I do want to see what their offense looks like this year. Now, Sean McDermott is a guy who's supposed to be defensive. The defense last year gave up almost 5 yards a rush. And you're looking at a schedule where they actually face some pretty good running backs this year. And if that is still an issue with them, not being able to stop the run, look, teams could sit there, go on long drives against them. You leave Josh Allen on the sideline, because I do think where the interception thrown percentage comes in with him is if they get down, he feels like he has to, take the, shoulder everything and try to, make the big play to get them back in the game. And that's when he does his, as you call them, arm punts, where he'll just throw the ball up, four defenders in the area, and it just gets picked off. And watching the Bills game, you're just like, Josh Allen is way too good, at least of a talent, to waste throws like that. So one thing I hate that he does, and I mean, John does bring up a interesting point, which is probably going to be a necessity, get Josh Allen back to being a dual threat. I mean, the issue is he's a big guy, and he's not necessarily one to slide. So I think that's why Buffalo tried to take it out of him, because a lot of these guys on defense, they know how to hit. And if he's going to stand up with the target that he presents, if he goes down, like, Buffalo is going to be like a 3-win team. So that I feel like they tried to get that out of him to, hopefully lead them to more wins and everything, and obviously durability. But yeah, looking at the way that this team is built, though, he probably does need to go back to running the ball himself sometimes. Well, Anthony did ask this. I saw it, but I didn't answer it. Last game of the preseason, yes, because cut down day is on Tuesday, I believe. So by Tuesday, everybody's roster will be finalized, and at that point, like, we are really locked into week 1 mode. But so yeah, Anthony's the last preseason game, which actually I think your Commanders are playing my Patriots, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, like the run defense I was talking about, because bad enough in the division, you're dealing with Miami that has A-Chain, Mostert. The Patriots have Ramondre Stevenson. The Jets have Breece Hall. They also face the Ravens, Derrick Henry, and Lamar Jackson. You have the Texans. I'm trying to think who their running back is. I mean, CJ Stroud can run a little bit there. Your Titans, Pollard and Spears. You got the Seahawks with Kenneth Walker, Charbonnet. The Colts have Jonathan Taylor. The 49ers have CMC. Like, there are some really good running backs on their schedule, and if they cannot stop the run, that's obviously how teams are going to attack them this year. They'd be dumb not to. So I do agree with you with the Bills. So who's your third team? That's right, Joe Mixon. Thank you. I knew they acquired someone I couldn't remember. Yeah, Joe Mixon.
And this might be a hot take to some people. That team in Maryland.
Love it.
Yes. That team in Maryland. Look, Derrick Henry is not magic tape. Having Derrick Henry is not going to magically help Lamar throw the ball outside the numbers. That does not work like that. It is not magic. And then they don't want to take account of you've lost some quality defensive starters. And I feel like their depth is lacking. If Matabuke gets hurt, I pray to God he don't.
Mm-hmm.
Do you trust what's behind him to put up similar production? Of course not. And your secondary minus Kyle Hamilton is meh. The Vikings are irrelevant. they've been irrelevant since they got rid of Kirk Cousins. Nobody expected them to do anything regardless. But as far as teams that are expected to do something that might regress, yeah, that team in Maryland, right? That team in Maryland is definitely one of them. Because I'm like, the secondary minus Kyle Hamilton is a little name heavy. Y'all love Marlon Humphrey. He's taking a little bit of a step back with age. He's gonna miss his games. I don't even know the rest of the secondary. Like I look,
I mean, those are the two names that you hear about, Hamilton and Humphrey.
yeah, that's the only two I know because you don't have Geno Stone no more. So good luck with that. And then you have a coach who is very stubborn. And if they don't figure that crap out, when to make Lamar throw the ball, when to have him run it, figure out some type of balance when it comes to Lamar, they will not be going to a Super Bowl anytime soon. They'll be closer to blowing it up. And if they do what they did last year, which is regular season dominance, you come out flat versus Houston before the talent and the experience just take over. Because in all honesty, if the game would have ended at halftime, the Ravens would have been going home. Well, if Houston had more experience, that's the way I meant to put
Yeah.
that. But the talent was there. Exactly. They're going to run him into the ground. But, they don't want to hear that part. So I have that they are definitely on regress watch.
I like that. I mean, look, as somebody who's the resident Ravens hater, the fact that, well, I mean, look, people who like have seen us before know neither of us are, the biggest Ravens, cheerleaders or anything. We can be critical of them. So I was not surprised that you brought them up. I left them off my list because I thought that maybe you would have, but if not, I probably would have brought them up as an honorable mention because look,
I'm going to bring them up. You know I don't like them.
I knew. That's why I was like, I knew you had this one. You also have to look at that. They did benefit last year from Joe Burrow not being with the Bengals. Joe Burrow is back this year. That's now a tougher game for them on their schedule twice a year. Pittsburgh is always a tough matchup because Pittsburgh has a really good defense. I know John brought up the Browns here. Go look at those players on the injury list. Do they even have a running back? Chubb returns is going to be, yeah. So I know I saw like a video of Chubb bench pressing like 800 pounds. It seems like the strength is there, but obviously he has to get back up to game speed. The Browns' biggest question, obviously, is their quarterback position. If he's not right, yeah, the Browns are going to struggle again. But the division you feel like should be better because Burrow is healthier. I do think maybe a reason why I might not have put him on is I feel like they're going to have a good regular season. At this point, that's kind of what they are. Like they are the Cowboys of the past like 20 years. You could pencil them in 10, 11 games, get to the playoffs, and you just know they'll find a way not to make it. And like I said, last year, if Houston was more experienced, like you said, they probably hold on to that lead. And we're talking about the Ravens coming off of a season being one and done after having a first round bye and their quarterback winning an MVP. Like you got to think about that. That's kind of crazy. And hold on, Anthony said you can bench press 800 pounds. Well, let's see when you get hit in the knee. That's true. Yes. Burrow might be healthy, but they're gonna finally protect him. Andrew Luck all over. Yeah, the Bengals have some issues. Not only with that, they're all their wide receivers are all disgruntled. So that part of it does worry me a bit about the Bengals, but Joe Burrow, we know, is a guy that loves to, you know, beat the big name teams. So when he faces the Ravens, it's not going to be easy. But yeah, so their offense, I know a lot of Ravens fans thought the Todd Monken thing was going to be this, revolutionizing of the offense. It was literally the same Greg Roman offense. Run, 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 throw to Mark Andrews, run, 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 throw to Zay Flowers over the middle. A lot of their offense is over the middle. Like that was from Roman to Todd Monken, hasn't changed. So I do agree with you. They could definitely take a step down. Like I said, I didn't put them on my list. Hey, what's up, Mo? What's going on? My third team. I mean, this might be kicking a city down when they're already down. I put the Saints, and I feel like when I looked back at last season, I was completely shocked. The Saints were 9-8 last year. That completely blew my mind that they were 9-8. But looking at this year, last year they were 31st in rushing yards per game. You have Alvin Kamara, you have Jamal Williams, which is actually a pretty decent running back group, but the Saints O line stinks. 29% sack percentage on defense. They don't get after the quarterback. Dennis Allen is their coach. I can't stand him, so I feel like that wheel's about to fall off big time this year. Mo said in Carr, I never trust. I mean, that's another aspect of it. I mean, Jory's talked about it before. Like Saints fans are, ready to move off of Derek Carr, and it's to the point that they're looking at like Spencer Rattler as breath of fresh air. I feel like the Saints early on in their schedule, they have what at the Cowboys in week 2, they have the Eagles week 3, at the Falcons and at the Chiefs 4 and 5. They're going to start off with a that's pretty heavy laden schedule there early on for a team. Doesn't have a lot of talent on it. I know they usually split with the Falcons, but they usually get the Falcons when it's in New Orleans, which is later on in the year. So I feel like they're going to start really slow. Like they could be like a 5-win team this year. And my question is like, is this really going to be it for Derek Carr? John says Derek Carr might lose the number 1 spot by week 6, bringing the rattlesnake in, Spencer Rattler.
They're going to be calling
very
for
well
Spencer Rattler this season. I promise you this.
Yeah.
They've never liked Derek Carr. They've never embraced Derek Carr. They were like, why did we waste money on Derek Carr? They hate him. And the fact that he can't stay healthy and then he's inconsistent when he is healthy, they're already over the whole Derek Carr experiment. They're going to be calling for by week 8, the latest. Whether or not he plays.
Brought in Kool-Aid though, yes. I mean, look, it's not even all on Derek Carr. Like they're still trying to clean up from the Sean Payton years. I mean, it's a little bit unfair on the players there, but until they kind of fix all that and can actually like start over, hopefully with a new coach outside of Dennis Allen, I just think it's going to be rough in New Orleans probably for the next couple of years. Bulaga, yes, they did bring him in. Was that the lineman from Oregon State? Yeah. And Kool-Aid is, Kool-Aid McKinstry from Alabama. But I mean, those are building blocks. Like that's something that, if you move on from Derek Carr, you bring Rattler in. If Rattler is the guy to go forward with, like just start your rebuild. Start acquiring talent over the next couple of drafts and just start it over. Because like I said, they went 9-8 last year. They're not a 9-8 type of team. Like 9-8, if they go 9-8 this year, like you're on the verge of a playoff spot. New Orleans has no business being anywhere near that. So, I mean, that might have been a cop out to pick the Saints as my team on the decline. But like I said, they went 9-8. They're going to struggle probably to go 5-12 this year. So who's your honorable mention?
because listen, I know we're gonna get on their defense being very good, but Grant Delpit, he's taking a lot of hits to the head.
Hmm.
No, it's somebody on the team that had, I think it was Grant Delpit that takes way too many hits. Um, I don't know how long you're gonna expect for your defense to be able to carry you while your offense kind of sputters and they're injury prone. And then I don't like their quarterback. I'm not a Deshaun Watson type of gal.
Hmm.
I'll just leave it at that. And we haven't seen Deshaun Watson actually been caliber since Houston. He hasn't played well since Houston. And when he does, it's flashes. And then back into I don't know what is going on. I don't know what that is. Then he
Hmm.
regrets to that. So I, Stefanski is a very good head coach. I will give him his due. But they're kind of in the bind. They're kind of in a bind. Because what Deshaun Watson looks like is going to dictate their whole season. Because it's like at some point your defense is going to get tired. Your defense is going to get tired, and your offense is going to be having to carry the one to be to carry the load of it. You have Nick Chubb coming off injury. I know you got Amari Cooper and Jerry Judy, but what's good is having them two if your quarterback is shaky
Yep.
and is not playing with the same level of confidence. This is a big year for this team. They have to do something. I granted they've been winning more than they have been since I've been alive because they've been trash for the most part. But at what point do we want to get to the next point? And yeah, this if Watson doesn't play well, this will go down as one of the worst NFL contracts in history if you don't play well.
That's like very fair. I mean, look, I was somebody that when they first got Watson, I bought it because I understood how good their defense was. I felt like Watson was going to be, even if it was just like 80% of what he was in Houston, Cleveland would have been a dangerous team. He has been like 5% of what he was in Houston. I honestly don't know what to expect from him anymore. Like you don't have Joe Flacco who you can just break that emergency glass on, come in for you and save your season. Like he's in Indy this year. They had DTR, but DTR wasn't all that impressive last year. So there's a lot on Deshaun Watson's shoulders to get Cleveland to the playoffs this year. Defensively, I think they'll be good. Like you have Myles Garrett. I mean, if you could argue best defensive player in the league. So he does make it easier on a lot of those guys over there on the defensive end. You have Owusu Karamoa, like you said, Delpit and those other guys. So defensively, they should be good. Can Deshaun Watson just be available, not turn the ball over, and I don't know, and just play like you know how to play football? Past couple of years, he looks like a guy that's like cooked, like completely cooked, and they gave him all that money. Like he needs to live up to it. I don't know if he actually can at this point, but
But he already got a short
just
shoulder.
I
He's not
know, and I saw that report and I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like you
even
didn't do much of anything the past couple of years. You got a sore shoulder already.
what the hell you mean your shoulder sore?
I mean, look, Cleveland's gonna have to figure that out. Like it's and look, the Cleveland fan base, like they are very passionate when it comes to their Browns. I feel like by each passing day, Watson is turning them more and more off on him. and he may become an unwelcome sight in Cleveland this year. Like they may cheer for the team and boo him. I don't even know. Like it might get to that point. Anthony also said that he forgot about the Giants. I mean, what is there to say about the Giants, really? They're the Giants.
Fair.
Like, that's like I say, Giants. And it's like, oh, yeah, terrible. All right, so we've done. Oh, go ahead. Yeah. Pretty, yeah. I mean, I, the Giants are, I don't know, New York football in general. A lot of drama comes with it. Not a lot of winning necessarily, but
Right.
they know how to grab headlines. I mean, Daniel Jones may pop up in our next segment, which we can, I think, move to now, which is under pressure. So I feel like every year we kind of do this, or not necessarily we, but the analysts and pundits like to look at who is under a lot of pressure going into the next season. So that's what we're going to do here. We'll name our players. I did leave it open ended, so you could throw coaches, you could just throw anybody in to this list. I'm assuming you probably have like what, more than 5 on your list.
4 players. 1, 2,
Okay.
and some honorable mention.
Okay. So let's go with your 4 players first. Yeah, we'll do it that way.
We just talked about him a little bit, so I'm really not going to sit here and expound on it. Deshaun Watson.
Yep.
He hasn't even played a lot since Houston.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. And he had his flashes, but as a whole, with his body of work, it has not been very good. Again, your contract is at risk of being one of the worst in contract in NFL history. Quit turning the ball over and play with some confidence. Actually, no, keep playing like you do because you deserve to play like that. I feel like he's a pathetic human being. I do not like him. Somebody we mentioned earlier, I wasn't gonna go straight quarterback because there's some other positions that need to put some pressure on him as well too. Mr. Quentin Johnston for the Chargers.
Yeah.
He has absolutely got to start actually catching the ball. You are a wide receiver, not a retriever. You don't go get it on the ground. Receive it while it's in the air, sir. And you are a first round draft pick. And all training camp, you've had the dropsies. You're going to be of no service to Mr. Justin Herbert to even help turn that franchise around. Receivers dropping the ball is usually the fastest way they get up out of the league. In case you didn't know that. Just
Mm-hmm.
like quarterbacks who turn the football over a lot without much reward on the other end, out of the league. My next player, Russell Wilson. Bottom line, this is it for him as a quarterback in the National Football League. Note, I didn't say as a starting quarterback. I said as a quarterback, period. If he does not play well and he does not figure out how to get rid of the ball in a timely fashion, and he loses the starting job to Justin Fields, it's over for him. Because he's shown this in 3 different spots. We've seen it a little bit in Seattle. Now we see why Sean Payton didn't like him. Sean Payton was also an unnecessary ass to him, and he deserved everything that's coming his way. But we see why. This preseason, we see why, because he really hasn't played well this season. Mike Tomlin gonna tell you what Mike Tomlin gonna tell you. He has not played well this season, this preseason.
Mm-hmm.
He don't fit. He doesn't figure something out, and he doesn't pull something out from underneath him. He's done. And the last on my list is Mr. Discount Double Lie, Mr. Aaron Rodgers. And we all know how I feel about him. He's very cognizant, he's very aware, and he knows that if he does not perform well, everybody will be gone. Robert Saleh, who is also on this list, um, Robert Saleh will be gone. The GM will probably be gone. Some of those players will probably be gone. He knows that this team needs to do something worthwhile, and he needs to survive more than 4 snaps to save face. At least do the bare minimum, save face. He's also 40 and coming off of an Achilles injury, so there's that. Did you
Mm-hmm.
want to players, or did you want me to go through my coaches as well?
I'll do my players and then you can go through your coaches. We overlap on a lot of them, so I'll keep mine very brief. I had Deshaun Watson as well. Look, the contract brings the pressure, and he hasn't played enough to really quiet any of that down. So it's a big year for him. I had Tua. You got the new contract from Tua, even though a lot of people don't necessarily think he is that level of player. And the Flores interview part of it makes me put him under a lot of pressure to actually perform this year, especially with the way that they ended last year. That falls on your quarterback. I do agree with you, Russell Wilson. You can even throw Justin Fields in that because it almost seems like both of them are at a crossroads in their career where if Russ doesn't win that job, he's probably out of football. Fields, this might be his last chance to maybe be a starter somewhere. Like if he doesn't work out under Tomlin, I feel like that's something that's going to stick with him, and he may start bouncing around this league. I had Aaron Rodgers as well. He brings about a lot of drama and attention to the Jets. And remember, this is a guy who hasn't won a Super Bowl in like 13 years. It has only been to that one. Was brought to New York to get them there because the Jets have been starving to actually make a Super Bowl. They have put everything on Aaron Rodgers to be their savior to get them there. Hasn't worked out. And the last player I had, well, quarterback, because when I think of this, I always go to quarterbacks. We talked about him a little earlier. Lamar Jackson, 2 MVPs, 2 playoff wins. Like that's the pressure right there. Like if he sits here and gets a third one before actually making a Super Bowl, I will ask the football writers stop giving this man awards until he actually wins in the playoffs on a regular basis. I don't care what he could throw for 5,000, rush for 3,000. He would never get another MVP vote from me until makes a Super Bowl. Hold on, let me catch up on some comments first. Other players: T. Higgins, Cortland Sutton, Jamison Williams. Lions move up to draft him at 12. Jonathan Taylor. Okay. Honorable mention: Daniel Jones. And the down year, the Giants enter the Quinn Ewers or Shadur Sanders sweepstakes. That's a very good point, John. Anthony said Aaron Rodgers, Derek Carr, Jalen Hurts, Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence is another one that you and I talk about a lot. I definitely agree with that, Anthony.
I don't agree with Jamison Williams because if you think about
Yeah.
last year, that was his first year coming off of ACL off of ACL injury.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't up to standard last year. He'll be fine.
I think
It's
he
going,
has a good year this year.
but I do agree with the rest of that. If T. Higgins wants to find his way down to Nashville and force a trade, I'm fine. I'm doing your. You won't have. We have an offensive line. You'll also have D Hop and Calvin Ridley. I really don't. Your homeboy Boyd is also in the locker room. So look,
There you go. The rumor has been started. Higgins to the Titans.
Rated. His decision making is subpar. And Doug Peterson is an honorable. Well, I'll get to what I think about Doug Peterson in a minute. Because, yeah. Anyway. But to my coaches, speaking of the Jets, Robert Saleh. This is what you get when you have little to absolutely no control of anything that goes on in that locker room. You know what he's like? A substitute teacher that nobody respects and has no control of the classroom. And I'm laughing because I've been in classes that have made teachers quit, that have made substitutes walk out because they could not get the class under control.
That's actually a pretty good analogy, yeah.
Pressure to actually do something with this team because you have too much talent on both sides of the football team, on both sides of the football, to be 7-10 or 6-11 or whatever the hell they were. They're too talented for that. And the fact that the front office decided they wanted to take the plunge on Zach Wilson showed how inept that they were at doing their job. The fact that now they're relying on a 40-year-old quarterback and didn't think he could have got hurt, which he did, and then you had to rely on Zach Wilson again. Congratulations. Like, now you've went and got an actual quarterback. Don't make me bring up Jadeveon Clowning. He got an whole NFL career off of one hit in South Carolina and decided to be a journeyman and do whatever the hell he wanted to do for the rest of the time. Don't get me started on him. Robert Saleh. He's done good with this defense, but with the team as a whole, and now that we know that he don't have the pants on in the locker room, that don't nobody listen to him, it's Aaron Rodgers' locker room. That's Aaron Rodgers' team. And whatever the hell, wherever the Jets get, that's exactly what they deserve for not having any type of order in that locker room and just letting Aaron Rodgers run amok. That's what they get. Anyway, Doug Peterson, who I just talked about a few minutes ago.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about Doug Peterson is, even though I kind of felt I was on the kind of side that when he first got fired from Philly, I felt like it was a little premature. But he's on the hot seat, I believe, because I'm like, the Jaguars have shown potential. Granted, I'm a Titans fan and I hate the Jaguars. I know what they could be as well. But inevitably, which is why I'm always laughing at them, they fall off the face of the cliff of the earth. And they've definitely done that as long as Peterson has been the coach. You've paid Trevor Lawrence. You've upholstered that team, supposedly, even though I think losing Calvin Ridley will be a bigger deal than what they think. Because we're not going to now, because what Jaguars fans like to do, and I hate them for it, is they like to act like Calvin Ridley is a scrub because he went to Tennessee, and that all of those drops in Jacksonville were all of Ridley's fault. No, half of those were bad balls. And their chemistry wasn't even together like that. He got chemistry in Nashville, though. They'll be just fine. He'll be just fine in Nashville to all the Jaguars fans, which is an overrated quarterback who don't make good decisions at times when it matters the most. But if you look at it, you just paid Trevor Lawrence, you built the team around him, you tried to kind of nicky-nack and trying to patch it up as you go. The first key piece that's going to go won't be Trevor Lawrence because they just paid him. It's going to be Dougie P. So they don't make I'm being long-winded, but I'm just going to say here, if it's playoff run or bust. Now, they got into the playoffs like 2 years ago. But at the same time, the only reason why they won that game is because the team that they were playing their head coach name was Brandon Staley.
Yep.
That's the only reason why they won that game. Had they, had I been coaching the Chargers, they would have lost. I'm getting to Mike McCarthy. He's next. Next up on the list. He's on a lame duck contract right now. He's coaching for his life, his career, his coaching career. Because if he don't get another, if he get, if his he don't get an extension or he gets fired, he's not getting another job. But he's also not really being given a quality team to really coach be with because he's given a worse team. He's being given a worse team than he had last year and expected to coach for his absolute life. So Mike McCarthy, yeah, this is his last year as the Cowboys head coach, I fear. Because they don't have a very easy schedule. They don't have room for failure. And we all know what Mike McCarthy is with that West Coast offense. It's elementary. It's force it to CeeDee Lamb, which he hasn't had all training camp because Jerry wants to procrastinate. He's being set up to fail, and he's gonna be jobless by the end of he's gonna be jobless. That's how I feel about that. And I would like to say Brian Dable. And I don't think it should be because he was given me to deal with at quarterback in Daniel Jones. Oh yeah, he's an honorable mention. Dennis Allen is definitely an honorable mention, but it's been a disaster. You don't have an offensive line. Your quarterback is dumpster fire juice. The one receiver you have, Mr. Malik Neighbors, is going to go through hell. I look, your running game. What running game? Again, Daniel Jones is your quarterback. That's all you need to know about the Giants. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel bad for Dayball because did he ask for Daniel Jones? No, absolutely not. But if they don't do something this year, he's definitely gonna be looking for another job. Because I think they're ready to just blow everything up at this point.
But, yeah, I mean that's a good point. I mean, look, they also have Jalen Hyatt, who's a pretty good young wide receiver, but doesn't matter if Daniel Jones cannot get them the ball, and they still have Tommy DeVito, but Tommy DeVito was a like cool story last year. You don't want him starting 17 games for you.
Mm-mm.
Um, I do think the chat brought up some good coaches. Like I'll throw out there, hopefully not to mess with your honorable mentions. You know, Kyle Shanahan has pressure this year. Like there are a lot of people who are going to question whether or not he's going to be the right guy to get the Niners to a Super Bowl. The Niners have some questions down the road, especially if they don't figure out the Ayuk situation long term. You have George Kittle, who's getting a little older at the tight end position. You have Brock Purdy, who has established himself as a good quarterback, but I do think that some of the detractors are going to wonder if you start taking some of these pieces away from him around him in Shanahan's system, is he still the same quarterback? So I do think Shanahan has some pressure this year. Sirianni, who John brought up, was another guy I'm looking at because the Eagles, I feel like they thought, I mean, the Eagles got rid of his two coordinators last year. Normally, that's the step before they get rid of you because they got rid of your coordinators to save face because they didn't want to change you necessarily. But now the excuses of those two coordinators not being good enough out the window. He would be the next one to go if their season doesn't go as well as the front office feels like. So those are two that I had. I mean, Dennis Allen, we talk about him enough. He's obviously there. We talked about Eberflus as well, but those are the two names I wanted to add. John brought up. Go after Eric Bieniemy if they do fire him. To be honest with you, I just don't know the Bieniemy. I don't know about Bieniemy anymore. The report came out last year that he's not a good interview. Like it's almost like that's the reason for him not being a coach in this league. I, I don't know. I feel like he should get the opportunity at least. Like if he's a bad interview and people think he won't necessarily be a good head coach, give him the opportunity to prove it right then. Obviously, front office isn't going to do that if they don't think he's a good coach because then they'll be out the door right after him. But he worked with Patrick Mahomes. Like John said, he made Sam Howell look good. For a lot of the season, Sam Howell was the number one passing yardage quarterback in the league. There had to be a reason for that. You point to Bieniemy. So for that alone, he should get a job. Brian Daboll should go back to Buffalo. I mean, he would probably much rather coach Josh Allen than Daniel Jones. So why not?
Promise you he would.
Yeah. All right.
But my
I guess
only
your honorable
thing,
mentioned.
I mean, we kind of already covered both of them.
Okay.
Like it
Okay.
was definitely against Allen. He's in my eyes, he brings absolutely nothing to the table. Like Saints fans are incredibly tired and frustrated with him. This organization has done has done a veteran squad an absolute disservice by having a sack of potatoes as a head coach. What does he do very well? Look at the damn clipboard. Like what
Yeah.
the division? The fact that he doesn't even have a playoff appearance yet in 3 seasons, and the fact that he's had the division within his grasp plenty of times. Yeah, he's got to show a pulse as a head coach. And like I said, Nick Sirianni. Last year cannot repeat itself. They already fired the coordinators. They're not gonna fire they're not gonna fire the coordinators again. After they fire the coordinators, the next firing is you. Because you're not gonna sit here and blame the coordinators for second grade. You. No. That team wilted and quit on him. His relationship with Jalen was strained for whatever reason. And the fact that they've improved this roster, there's no excuses for Sirianni. If the bare minimum, if they don't go to the playoffs, if they go to the playoffs and get bounced like that, if they're going to get bounced, it better be a competitive game. They can't get bounced like 32-9 or whatever the heck the score was. As far as players are concerned, though, again, you kind of hit the nail on the head with Lamar Jackson. You have 2 MVPs and 2 playoff wins. You ain't no better than Dak Prescott when it comes to playoffs.
Dak Prescott has actually better numbers.
Exactly.
I think Dak is like 20 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Lamar's 9 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. So
Again, and him being all snippy and talking about he don't care and diddling about this and that, it don't change jack squat about the fact that you struggle throwing outside the numbers and pushing the ball down the field at times. He's excellent. He's excellent when it comes to working the middle of the field with tight ends and doing all of the middle of the field stuff. Outside the numbers, they don't want to talk about that though. And the fact of for the matter is he can make plays. He's good for a couple of plays in the regular season. He's good for it in the regular season. Can you make it translate when the lights shine brightest? And the answer so far has been, for the most part, no. There's no more excuses.
I like Jacoby Brissett. I'll just say that, John. I think he'll pop up somewhere else next year, but I see what you're saying. But I mean, look, I think the your honorable mentions obviously because I talked about Lamar before, so I completely agree with that. I think the Sirianni thing is fascinating as well because even though he's taken them to a Super Bowl, like they are pretty ready to move off of him, especially once again they would probably jump into the Bill Belichick sweepstakes if he shows the interest to coach next year. If Sirianni once again, leads them to a division title, but maybe they come up short of even like the NFC Championship game, I think they would probably move on from him because they have Jalen Hurts, they have the talent, the wide receiver position, they have all that. Like you got to take advantage of it because sooner or later, some guys on that team will become too expensive to keep, and then you start stripping it down. And the Eagles don't want to feel like they missed their opportunity to win with this group. So I do think Sirianni is a guy that's being looked at very very closely, especially in Philadelphia. Look, and I know cities like Philadelphia, New York, Boston, and all that. They get to a certain point where they feel like things are getting stale, and I think Philly's getting that way with Sirianni. Like Sirianni needs to get back to a Super Bowl, and to be honest with you, they probably need him to win one.
And if Sirianni wasn't so childish, his fans and that fan base wouldn't get so stale on it so quickly.
Yeah,
Grow up, bro.
yeah.
At your age and not your shoe size.
Always a great line to go to. Yeah, I had honorable mention Jerry Jones only because terrible offseason. The we know how much he likes to be relevant, but if they completely bottom out and are terrible this year, Jerry will find a way to do something crazy just to let people know that he's still around. But yeah, if they don't play well, this offseason will look even weirder by him because normally the knock on Jerry Jones is he'll chase big names just to grab headlines, and this year he didn't do it. Biggest name was Zeke Elliott. And Zeke had a decent year in New England last year, but this isn't Ohio State Zeke anymore. How long do they give Watson at least before they bring in Winston? That's a good question. I mean, for what you're paying Watson, like you kind of have to deal with the bad play as long as you can. I don't know if it's necessarily a quick pull on him because Winston's not necessarily. Well, I mean, Winston has his moments. Like Winston's a guy. If they turn to him, he'll have even a shorter leash than Watson because when James Winston's playing well, he's fine. But when he completely drops off and starts turning the ball over, it's a sight to see, and you can't let that run too long either. I think they get Watson the whole year. Obviously, health being the X factor there, but if he's healthy all year, I think he starts every game of the year.
Being that his shoulder already sore and we haven't even started.
Yeah. Or he could just be using that to stay out of the preseason. He probably had zero interest playing in the preseason.
The fact that he's starting off with a sore shoulder, he's not going to be healthy by the end of the year.
Right. But I feel like if he's ready to go each week, he will start no matter what.
Right. I give him until week 10.
Okay.
Now he might make me a liar and something might happen earlier, but I give him to week 10.
I mean, I figured that joke was coming from somebody.
See, I had that in the draft, but I'm not gonna sit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, I guess that's our under pressure. We will definitely continue to look at some other aspects of the NFL season next week. Trying to think how we want to address maybe a awards or something like that. I mean, we do have to give Super Bowl predictions. Obviously, we'll do that next week because it would be our show before the regular season starts. So we'll definitely dive into all of that next week. But before we do get out of here, I do want to remind everybody Jory and I have a blog where we do articles. I put up a short on there, but it's over on Tumblr. It's in the description under the video. You can go there, follow the show. It's another way to interact with us when we're not live here on Integrity Sports Network. So just want to throw that in there. If you want to see some of our content, because Jory has a couple of articles up there, and John,
Oh,
light blue jersey, yeah. I mean, you kind of know she had to rep the Titans gear. Um, yeah, so if you want to get articles from us, like I said, Jory has a couple up there where kind of like a topic we had today. She talked about some teams who she feels like will step up this year and some who will regress. Definitely check that out. It's a good read. I did one on the Brandon Ayuk situation, kind of alluding to where we are now, where it almost seems like he's just using all these other teams to get more money out of the Niners. I honestly don't think he actually wants to go anywhere. He just is trying to just keep driving up the price from San Francisco. So it's whoever blinks first, that will end that way. And there's the other ones up there. So it's over on Tumblr. Make sure you look in the description, follow the link, give us a follow. Greatly appreciate it. Jory, anything else you want to add before we get out of here?
the Yankees lost to the Rockies 9-2 yesterday. I just wanted to let everybody know that. My Braves have been playing pretty solid. They've started stacking together some wins. I'm very proud of that. We're only 4 games. I think we're only about 5 games back behind the Phillies, and the Phillies aren't playing, and the Phillies are playing like trash. So,
Right.
no matter how
You at least have that because my Red Sox are falling off of the track as we speak.
but the Yankees are going to crash. I already see it coming, but that's all I have to say. As long as my Braves make the postseason, no matter how injury riddled we are, it's 6 games back. We must have lost today. This is why I don't brag on them.
I was about to look that up because I don't know. Did they? Hold on. I will tell you in a second. Yeah, they lost 5-1 today.
Why I do not brag on the Braves, because the second I start running my mouth, they lose. I'll save it for next week, but we'll be going to the playoffs.
Yeah, I do think the Braves are our playoff team. And look, Chris Sale has defied the odds. The man's been healthy. He's been dominant. Could be your Cy Young winner. Like I obviously root for Chris Sale because despite the injuries and everything that hindered his career in Boston, like he's just a good pitcher. Like when he's on, one of the toughest lefties in the league to face, and I'm happy that he's regained that form in Atlanta. I will say that, and Atlanta's doing all this with so many guys out. Like I respect what the Braves are doing this year. NL West will probably have 3 teams in the playoffs. Yeah, Dodgers and Diamondbacks are pretty much locks. Oh, actually, the Padres. Yeah, the Padres are a lock too. Yeah, they will have 3.
9 games already. I'm like, damn. Like they've already been mathematically eliminated.
Yeah, yeah. That's baseball. Oh, here we go. Here we go, Anthony. This is what I love to see. Getting tired of getting alerts. Aaron Judge hit a home run. Why are you pitching to him? Walk him. Yeah, that's actually a
Soto
good question.
and Aaron Boone. I hope the Yankees fall off the cliff and flame out in October. I am tired. And Yankees fans are annoying.
Hey, I'm
Juan
a Red Sox
Soto this,
fan. You
Aaron
don't have to
Judge
convince me anything.
that. I'm like, y'all just lost 9-2 and struggled to stay on the goddamn base. Shut up.
Yep. Also, Yankee fans, Aaron Judge isn't even the best player in baseball. They like to think he is. He's not. So, yeah. Shohei's better.
I,
There. I'm sure that's going to rile them up. Um, I mean, I agree. They don't need to pitch to him. Like the lineup is Judge and Soto. Everybody else, go crazy. Like walk them, throw balls at them, and hopefully that they swing and miss. Fine. But some of these pitchers are like dead red down the middle, and I'm like, how do you think you're gonna fool Aaron Judge or Juan Soto with pitches that have so much of the plate? You got to pitch them off the corners and take your chances. That's what the Red Sox do with Aaron Judge. They throw sliders like off the plate, hoping that he chases them. Like that's what you do. Him, Stanton pitch the same way. Soto, you kind of crowd him and hope you get him out. But yeah, I wouldn't pitch to him either. Otani's the first DH to get an MVP. He might get that 50-50 quicker than anyone all time. Yeah, he's already got the 40-40, which I almost think because of his ability to pitch and his home run hitting, people forget he steals a lot of bases too, which is kind of crazy to think that he does all that. But yeah, I think he'll get to the 50-50 mark. I honestly think outside of him, like Acuna is another guy who can do 50-50 for sure. But like those are the
y'all
only
lucky.
two. Hmm?
I said, y'all are lucky he's hurt.
I
Otherwise, I
agree.
don't even think the Phillies are even.
I agree with that. Well, I mean, the Phillies will probably be around because the Phillies have a decent team, but it would be a much tighter race if Acuna was still playing for sure. Like that's like a top 5 player in the league that you're missing. De La Cruz might be the next one to get 40-40. Hmm. The 40 home run part would probably be the one I'd question, but 40 steals, he can get that in like 2 months. Easy. I honestly think could he be a guy who might get like 60, 70 steals one year? Anthony says, "Don't sleep on my Orioles." I I'm fully awake on the Orioles. Even as a Red Sox fan, I
I
love the Orioles.
thought of the Yankees 15-2. I think that was the score. I know what I hope the Orioles win the division. Let them win it.
That was my prediction for the season. I thought the Orioles were going to win the AL East. I love their development of these young players that is finally paying off for them. I am fully on board with what the Orioles are doing. Brewers are a sleeper, and you're a Braves fan. Yes, Brewers are playing really well. Also, I mean, John, I'm sure you checked out Bases Loaded. We got Trajan, who's the Brewers fan, on there, and we all acknowledge like the Brewers are a good team. They really are.
Nice, and I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued by the Brewers.
Yeah. Look, I just like playoff baseball, and I do think we always get some surprises that happen every year. So I'm fully ready to see the playoffs this year. Would love to see my Red Sox get in, but well, I mean, the Diamondbacks are finally leaving town. Like they got swept by them. yeah, the Diamondbacks just had their number this weekend. Trying to think who they have coming up next. I don't know, but they got to get their bullpen going. That's been the bane of my existence with the Red Sox for about 3 months now. The bullpen is slowly getting worse and worse, which means your
I like
starting
Alex
pitchers have
Cora.
to go. Sorry, go ahead. I did not hear you. I don't know why.
Cora. I like
Uh,
him.
yes, I was happy they gave him the 3 year extension. He earned that. I think the Dodgers will be the first team to get to 100 wins. That's a pretty safe bet. I can agree with that one. Blue Jays are next for the Red Sox. Okay, thank you for letting me know.
And so you have a chance in that one.
Man, Blue Jays pitching staff's a mess. So I like my chances there. Yeah. Problem is they have to find ways to catch the Royals and the Twins. I don't know if the Orioles, I feel like that's too big of a gap. Problem is you can't get the Royals or Twins to lose enough for the Red Sox to really gain on them. That's my only issue. And they're running out of time. We're about to be into September, which means you have a really big crunch on the regular season. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Give me the Guardians to get more wins than the Dodgers. Hot take. LOL, it could happen.
That's enough. I mean,
I'd be shocked if the Guardians had more wins than the Dodgers, but I've kind of been surprised by the Guardians all season. So I can't say that it can't happen. I probably would side with, if I'm going to pick a team to probably win more than the Dodgers, I think the Orioles could have more wins than the Dodgers. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if the Brewers had more than the Dodgers. Only a 3-win difference. That's true. I just don't know about. I don't know if the Guardians have that in them. If I can say that. Cleveland, no, put Philly over them.
because Philly, no, just no.
Well, I mean, the Phillies haven't looked good since the break, so I find it hard to believe. If the Phillies could put together like 3 good weeks, I might be there with you. I just don't know if they have that in them.
They don't have it in them. I'm telling you,
Philly chokes in September. I mean, sure, John's a Braves fan. You might say that's the brave talk in him, but yeah, Phillies. I just haven't been impressed with the Phillies, like I said, post All-Star break. I need to see it from them first before I can make a statement about them winning more games than the Dodgers or anything like that. They need to worry about, Jory and John's Braves not catching them. That should be their biggest worry.
because I didn't know they lost the game today, and I was just so happy that we had won yesterday, and now we're still 6 games back. But my Braves will get it together.
Yeah.
They've been floundering. So I look, they'll get it together. And hot take, the Braves will win the division.
Okay. All right. It's on record. Jory has the Braves making up the 6 games and winning the division. Good thing for the Braves. They have the Phillies end of the month. It's a 3-game series. If they could take 2 of 3 or even get a sweep, now you can start hearing the grumblings in Philly about them possibly losing this lead. Because they cut the lead in half in that series from going from 6 to 3. Yeah, you might be onto something, Jory. You might be onto something.
We can do it again as long as Bryce Harper ain't pissed off.
True. Yeah. uh, I mean, look, well, I guess from here on out we might do Braves and Red Sox watch at the end of the show. I mean, Jory might become happier with her team. I may become more and more upset with mine. We will just have to see. But I mean, I do live in this area, so I do pay attention to the Braves. If my Red Sox are not in it, I do root for the Braves in the postseason. That's full disclosure there.
I root for anybody but the Yankees.
I do that too. Yeah, that just comes with being a Red Sox fan, though. That's just in the DNA.
They're fans, and I feel like they're overrated. Y'all haven't done anything since I was 10 years old. I'm 23.
Yes. Red Sox probably won best improved them in Kansas City. I mean, Kansas City probably has it because Kansas City came completely out of nowhere. So did the Red Sox, with Kansas City being smaller market team and everything. I would give it to them. Bobby Witt Jr. has burst on the scene and let people know he's one of the best players in baseball right now. Houston, I don't know what's wrong with them. I mean, they had a terrible start to the season. That was their biggest problem. But they are leading the AL West right now. So even after all of that, they'll probably still be a playoff team. And Yankee fans, you don't want to see them in the playoffs because they own the Yankees the past couple of years. So, yeah. But I think Houston will be fine.
Not because I
Plus,
don't
the
like them.
Mariners are falling off. They're cheaters. That's what's wrong. And old men on there. Oh, sure. I know. Yeah. Yankee fans haven't gotten over that. But, yeah, they're supposed to be on the up and up now. We'll give them that. Yeah. We're a little over the 2 hour mark. I'm sure, you guys are probably tired of seeing us. But, like I said, got the blog. Let me put that back up for you. Make sure you go check us out over on Tumblr. In the description, get more content from Jory and myself. We will be back with you this hopefully Friday, which is usually our normal day, but we have some flexibility. So you'll definitely see us either Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. I can guarantee that. So make sure you come back, like, follow, subscribe, all that, Integrity Sports Network. That way you be alerted when we do go live. Make sure you come back for more great conversation with Jory and myself. So this is the Passion and Precision podcast. Appreciate you. We'll leave it on that. Drug test Aaron Judge every day. That we'll leave that out there as we get out of here. Enjoy the rest of your day and your weekend. And we will see you next time. All right. Bye.